Hello everyone and welcome to Bhasi's IAS. Let's take up today's news analysis, that is 10th December 2019. Let's get into our first article of discussion. Our first article is regarding lawmaking process or legislative power of the government. Lok Sabha passes Citizenship Amendment Bill amidst opposition outcry. India can't be mute spectator to prosecution, says Amit Shah. First, let us try to understand why in news. This is in news because Lok Sabha on Monday passed CAB or Citizenship Amendment Bill that seeks to give citizenship to refugees from Hindu, Christian, Buddhist, Sikh and Zoroastrian communities fleeing religious persecution from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan. Bill was passed 3/11/80 with zero absenteeism after the opposition put up a spirited attack against it. Responding to the 5-hour debate that saw nearly 48 speakers from various political parties participating, Union Home Minister Amit Shah said that it was a historic bill that sought to complete what the Nehru Liaquat plan could not do. Now let us understand what is Nehru Liaquat plan of 1950. So basically, on April 8, 1950, Delhi Pact was signed, which is also called Nehru Liaquat Pact. Okay, so Nehru Liaquat Pact is also called Delhi Pact. It was the outcome of 6 days of talks between India and Pakistan. Prime Ministers of India and Pakistan, Jawaharlal Nehru and Liaquat Ali Khan, wanted to ensure that rights of minorities in both the countries. So the main aim of signing this pact was to ensure that rights of minorities in both the countries are protected. Most importantly, they wanted to avoid another war which seemed to be brewing since the partition in 1947. Now let us understand why both the governments have decided to come to a pact called Delhi Pact or Nehru Liaquat Pact in 1950, soon after 3 years post-partition, and what was the flashback or what is the background regarding signing of this pact. So this pact is signed with regards to protect or ensure the rights of minorities in both the countries. So partition of subcontinent into Pakistan and India happened in 1947 but resulted in many communal violence that we know. Communal rights happened. In December 1949, trade and industry between two countries were cut off. Okay, 1947, independence happened. After 2 years, 1949, trade were cut off. 1950, an estimated 1 million people, Hindus from East Pakistan, present-day Bangladesh, was a provincial state of Pakistan during that time, and Muslims from West Bengal crossed the borders. So while this is all happening in the background, two prime ministers met in Delhi on April 2nd, 1950. They signed an agreement to safeguard the rights of minorities. This pact came to be known as Liaquat Nehru Pact, or it is also called Delhi Pact, as we just discussed. Okay. Some of the objectives of this pact were to lessen the fear of religious minorities, to put an end to communal riots and to create an atmosphere of peace. So it was agreed that both the governments would ensure complete and equal rights of citizenship and security of life and properties to their minorities. Ensuring full fundamental human rights, which included rights of freedom of movement, freedom of thoughts, expression and right of religion, was part of the deal. A minority commission, most important fact is that a minority commission was set up to make sure that they would be represented. They vowed to not violate the rules of the pact and to make all efforts to reinforce it. If the minorities faced any problem, it would be duty of both the governments to redress their problems without delay. In short, this pact agreed to guarantee full right to their minorities and to accord them the status of citizenship. So now, in this Citizenship Amendment Bill of 2019, Amit Shah stated in Lok Sabha that it was a historic bill that sought to complete what Nehru Liaquat Pact could not do. At the same time, in Lok Sabha, he also added the point that India can't be a mute spectator to the religious persecution of minorities happening in our neighboring countries. We have given refuge to everyone without exception at various points of time in the history. And he also added that Indian Muslim population has grown from 9.8 to now it is around 14% of the population. So the bill will not affect Indian Muslims or their rights at all. He also added in Lok Sabha speech that other neighboring countries like Nepal and Sri Lanka were not mentioned in this act because these were not theocratic states. Now let us understand what is theocratic state. So theocracy is a form of government where God or a deity of some type is recognized as supreme ruling authority, giving divine guidance to human intermediaries that manage the day-to-day affairs of the government. So he said that Sri Lanka and Nepal, in this list it is not added because we added only Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan because they are almost like based upon theocracy, and states like countries like Nepal or Sri Lanka are not theocratic. Because of that, they are not added in the amendment list. He also added stating that this will benefit the Bangladeshi refugees the most. There is no need to fear now. Anyone who has or does not have document is welcome. Refugees need not fear, but those coming here illegally are not welcome. And he said that Northeast would not be touched, or Northeast is exempted from this act. Majority of parties representing the Northeastern states supported the bill as their concerns had been taken care of. Now let us understand a gist about this bill, that is what is in and who all are out. The bill seeks to allow members of 6 communities from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan to apply for naturalization, but the list does not include Muslims. Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis and Christians from these countries will not be considered illegal migrants. They should have entered the country prior to December 31st, 2014 and should have stayed for at least 5 years to be eligible for naturalization. Residential requirement for citizenship through naturalization for others is 11 years. No mention of Muslim migrants or minorities from other neighboring countries is mentioned. Bill allows OCA cards to be cancelled if card holder violates any law after an opportunity to be heard. Let's get into our next article of discussion. Our next article is regarding UN Development Index. According to United Nations Development Index, India up one rank in the index. Norway tops the list among 189 countries. India is at 129th rank. Report flags growing gender inequality. So in this particular discussion, first we'll try to understand why in news. This is in news because India ranks 129 out of 189 countries on the 2019 Human Development Index. We call it as HDI, UN Human Development Index, up one slot from the 130th position last year. So 2018 report we were at 130 and 2019 we are at 129. This is according to Human Development Report or HDR released by United Nations Development Program on Monday. So HDR is released by UNDP or United Nations Development Program. So HDI basically measures 3 parameters, that is life expectancy, education and per capita income. So life expectancy is measured, education is measured and also per capita income is measured. Based upon all these things, Human Development Index is released by UNDP every year. So HDI measures average achievement in 3 basic dimensions of human development, that is life expectancy, education and per capita income. Norway, Switzerland, Ireland occupy the top 3 positions in that order. Germany is placed 4th along with Hong Kong, and Australia secured the 5th rank on the global ranking. Among India's neighbors, Sri Lanka and China are higher up the rank scale, while Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan, Afghanistan were ranked lower than the list. So when comparing the Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka and China tops than India, then comes India. After that, all other countries comes. There is reported 46% growth in South Asia. As per the report, South Asia was the fastest growing region in human development progress, witnessing a 46% growth over 1990 and 1990 to 2018. There is 46% growth which is measured in South Asia human development growth. But while we are considering inequality adjusted human development index, the scenario is entirely different. India's position drops by 1 position to 130, losing nearly half the progress made in the past 30 years. So inequality adjusted human development index indicates percentage loss in HDI due to inequalities. Report notes that group-based inequalities persist, especially affecting women and girls, and no place in the world has gender equality. So in the gender inequality index, India is at 122 out of 162 countries. And neighbors like China, Sri Lanka, Bhutan and Myanmar have scored above India. While considering Sustainable Development Goals (SDG), the report states that world is not on track to achieve gender inequality by 2030 as per the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. It forecasts that it may take around 200 years to close the gender gap in economic opportunity, one of the three indicators of GII. GII stands for Gender Inequality Index. The report also talks about increasing bias across society. That is, report presents a new index indicating that how prejudices and social beliefs obstruct gender equality, which shows that only 14% of women and 10% of men worldwide have no gender bias. The report notes that this indicates a backlash to women's empowerment, as these biases have shown a growth especially in areas where more power is involved, including in India. The report also highlights that new forms of inequalities will manifest in future through climate change and technological transformation, which have the potential to deepen existing social and economic fault lines. Please look into this graphical representation of the statistical table given here. From this, you can easily understand the scenario. Among India's neighbors, Sri Lanka moved the 5 ranks on HDI ladder, while Maldives fell 3 ranks, while Pakistan slipped 2 spots, Bangladesh moved up 1. So, these are our, with respect to India, 2017 position and 2018 position. We are in 29th now. While summarizing this discussion, we can understand that we were talking about UN, that is Human Development Index or HDI, which is published by UNDP. It is published this year. India is having a status of 129 out of 189 countries, but with respect to inequality adjusted human development index, India is at 122 out of 162 countries. We lost 1 position down. And human development index is measured based upon 3 parameters: life expectancy, education, and per capita income. Let's get into our next article of discussion. Our next topic is regarding environment and ecology, or precisely we can say about climatic change with respect to greenhouse gas emission. The article heads by saying that climate treaty at a tipping point, alternative strategies led by India and China should now move center stage. Okay, so why this is in news? This is in news because annual climate summit, which is happening every year with increasing levels of concentration of greenhouse gases, raises questions on global climate policy. World's major emitter, that is US, United States of America, rejected multilateralism premised on burden sharing. European Union's ambition of net zero emissions by 2050 obfuscates needed societal change by ignoring the embedded carbon imports, a third of their emissions of carbon dioxide. So while we're talking about all this Western countries parameters, both are shifting the burden, all these things, to India and China, is what the author says. Policy problems is that climate treaty considers symptoms, that is emissions of greenhouse gases, rather than causes, that is use of natural resources. India, which is responsible for just 3% of cumulative emissions, is the most carbon efficient and sustainable major economy. The author points out very clearly that excessive resources used by a fifth of world population in a small part of the planet is from the western side still responsible for half of the global material use and cause of climate change. Asia, with half the world's population, is responsible for less than half of material use and living in harmony with the nature. 3 shifts in natural resources use have taken place in the last 400 years. So we'll see what are 3 shifts which happened in natural resource uses. The 3 shifts which happened in the past 400 years with respect to all the countries is shift from agriculture to industry happened, from rural to urban area happened, and from livelihood consideration towards well-being considerations happened. That is, colonialism and its aftermath of multinational corporations was the driver of the first shift, that is, from the agriculture to the industrial era. Infrastructure shift brought the second one, that is from the rural to urban. And finally, societal norms of progress of the third. Only the first 2 global trends show limited convergence and stabilization. That is, shift from agriculture to industry and rural to urban have only shown limited convergence and stabilization. Third one, that is shift from livelihood to well-being, sharply between material abundance in the West and societal well-being in India and China. Consumption patterns of primary material use for the provision of major services are driven by diverse values that include both global trends transforming human societies. For example, urbanization, economic globalization, digitalization, as well as national pathways to achieve prosperity. The article also talks about natural resources use. National natural resources use accelerated in two distinct phases with very different origins and impacts. In North America and in Europe, it's been talked about. In North America and Europe, resource use accelerated after 1950, not with Industrial Revolution use from 1850. So, by 1970, 3/4 of their population has moved to cities characterized by unprecedented prosperity, leading to the trajectory towards climate change. Basically, China started this from the year of 2000, also driven by urbanization that is characterized as pre-unprecedented growth. Different values and objectives of increasing well-being rather than wealth led to China in 2016 having the same per capita emissions of carbon dioxide as the West had in 1885. The article also points about different views of prosperity. There are different dimensions we can see how the prosperity with respect to different nations. India and China, civilization states with a population nearly 8 times that of US, have redefined progress. Okay. In China, electricity consumption per capita is a third of the European Union and sixth of the US. Residential energy consumption has increased at a rate less than half the increase in GDP and corresponds to increase in urban population, showing limited increase with more disposable household incomes. Even the measures for global sustainability also we can draw from India and China. That is, for example, transport emissions are the fastest growing emissions worldwide, projected to become half of global emissions and in future more polluting than coal use. India and China are global leaders in sustainability, not only because of their low per capita resources use, but also because of their contribution to peak oil around 2035 as they adopt electric vehicles supported by solar and wind renewable energy. It is estimated that by the year 2040, more than half of the global wealth will be concentrated in Asia. The low carbon social development model adopted by India and China will become the world system, ensuring global sustainability. Then the pattern of natural resources use adopted by Western civilization will more clearly be seen as short-term anomaly rather than collective transformation or unified evolution of civilization. Much before that, alternative strategies led by India and China should replace the ineffective climate treaty. That's all for today. Hope this helps. Thank you.